fiction mystery quilt.
Hi, I'm Linda Smith.
And I'm Sue Ellen Jennings.
To make your Valentine's Day mug rug, cut out 2 5-inch squares of whatever fabric you like, 1 5-inch square of batting, and then print your pattern out for its pattern number 2 on the PDFs and scale it to 50%. Then cut it out like I've already done, and then you're going to fold your fabric like the video shows on making the wonky fabric blocks in half. And finger press it, and then in half again, and finger press it again. These lines will help you find the center point of your fabric. Once you've done that, then you're going to want to take your heart and fold it in half, and then in half again. This also gives you lines that you can follow, so you can see these lines on here, and they are going to line up on the lines of where you finger pressed, and that gives you your center mark. Once you have your center mark and you have it lined up, take your fabric marking pen, and I use the sew line, but you can use a pencil, you can use anything. Mark your heart shape out onto your fabric. And once you have it marked, like so. See if y'all can see that. And then I am just going to fold it this way in half so I can see where I marked. And I am going to pop a couple of pins in here to hold it in place where I marked it so that I can cut this and have the shape cut out. And then I'm going to take the piece of wonky fabric that I just made, and literally this project takes less than an hour from start to finish to do the entire mug rug. And so I've got it folded, and now I'm just going to cut on the line that I drew and cut out my heart shape. And of course you can freehand your heart if you want to. You don't have to print a template out if you don't want to. This is a reverse applique, and it's going to be going down onto my little mug rug. So it's the frame for the fabric, frame for the mug rug. And now that we're all cut out, we can unpin and open it up, and I'm going to go get my piece of wonky fabric, because there is my heart cut out. Isn't that lovely? So I sat down at my sewing machine a few minutes ago, and I grabbed some reds because I felt like it's Valentine's Day, just sew a bunch of reds together. And now I can just lay this down and pick a place on my mug rug that I like where this looks the best. And so it's going to be just keep turning it and playing with it until you find where you like yours out of your piece of wonky fabric. And it can be anywhere on your fabric you like. Once you have your placement on your piece of wonky fabric, and again, I did not sew a big piece of wonky fabric at all this time. Once you have your placement where you want it, and I like this one because it's got the most patchwork in it, and I really like the patchwork look. I think it Looks very old-timey. Anyway, because this is such a little block, we're going to change up how we're doing it from the main video. And I am going to pop a couple of pins in here to hold this in place. Now, for a bigger block, you want to do it exactly like the video shows. But for a little block like this mug rug, once we get it done, we can make our mug rug. But for a little one like this, you can just go through and put a couple of pins in on it, and then we're going to take it to our machine, and we're just going to sew around this heart. That's all we're going to do. And you can do a straight stitch around it, or you can do a little tiny zigzag, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to zigzag around it. It won't take me any time at all. Let's go do that. So I have my machine set up with my open toe foot so I can see what I'm doing. I've got my stitch width set at 1.8 and my length set at 0.8, and this will give me a really tiny little zigzag stitch. And I'm just using regular piecing thread. You don't have to use any type of special thread or anything. And you always want to start on your background fabric, and for us our background fabric is my polka dot fabric. So I'm going to make sure that my needle, when it drops down, it is on the edge of the background fabric, just about ready to touch the other fabric. I'm going to lock my stitch, and then I'm just simply going to sew around this real quick. And again, you can do a straight stitch, you can do any kind of little stitch you want to. The only thing we are trying to do here is get this attached. And here we are. All we've got left is this, and we have come to the end of where we are wanting to stop at. So this is how fast I got this attached. And you can see as I'm coming up to my other stitching how sweet this simple little zigzag stitch is. It is not any kind of fancy applique. It is just a simple little zigzag stitch. So I've got my pins, and I'm just taking them out now. And then all we're going to do is reach behind here and trim the fabric off. And this is another, just like making wonky fabric, you do not have to be overly careful unless you want to use this piece of fabric for something else. And I'm just leaving, it looks like about a ½ an inch. Just be careful that you do not cut your background fabric. Okay, so I quickly ran over to my ironing board and I pressed my little reverse applique made with wonky fabric. Now I have my piece of backing fabric, and I have my little heart here, And I'm putting them right sides together. And on top of them, I have my batting. And so I have set my machine to 1/4 of an inch seam allowance. And I am just going to sew all the way around this 1/4 of an inch. And I've got them lined up as good as I can get them lined up. And I'm going to sew 1/4 of an inch seam all the way around, leaving me a turning opening. And I want to make this about 2 inches so that I'll be able to get up in there and turn this inside outwards. So I'm going to start right here with this. And because this is a stress point, we're going to tack it forward and backwards a couple of stitches. And then we're going to sew. When you get to a corner, leave your needle down and pivot. Didn't go far enough? I do that all the time. Let's try that. There we go. So I'm going to come in just about an inch or so and back, tack a little bit. Now we're simply going to turn this inside outwards. So we're simply going to trim the corners next. Don't cut your stitches, but you do want to cut off the excess batting and such on your corners. It just makes them lay better. There, all 4 corners are now trimmed. Now I'm going to reach in and I'm going to turn this inside outwards. Just sort of shove everything up through there. And once you get it all turned, then we'll poke out the corners really nicely. If you have a purple thing, this is a perfect time to use one of these. I know some people like to leave a little square of thread they can pull. I am not trying to get absolutely perfect corners on mine, so I'm just trying to get them poked out nice. And because there's batting in there, it's a little bit more challenging to get them really, really nice and square, but just do your best. And so I'm just going to continue around here and poke all my corners out a little bit more square like this. And then I consider that really nice, that much. And I've got one more corner to do. And then I am going to sew this shut. And to do that, you can either hand stitch it, fold these edges over, and hand stitch it, or if you're into instant gratification like I am, you can just machine stitch right across here. And then I'm going to just get as very close to this edge as I can get with my needle and thread, and I'm going to close this opening. And you do want to be right on the edge. The closer the better. All we're trying to do is just get it closed up. And once you've got it closed, then we can sew a little top stitch all around the edge, and I think I'm going to do mine about 1/4 of an inch in. Okay, so now I'm just going to top stitch all the way around this, and if your edges are not really even between your two fabrics, if you picked a different fabric, just roll them in your fingers to get it to lay down nice and flat before you top stitch it, and sort of give it that little coaster look. Then mine are nice and flat, so I'm just going to line up. I've got my machine set, I think I do. Now I do. To a 1/4 of an inch stitch, and I do like bigger stitches for top stitching, so I'm going to put it at 3.0. Again, I have not changed my thread. I'm still using my piecing thread. I am simply just going to sew around the outside of this a 1/4 of an inch all the way around, just to give it a little extra cuteness on the edge. And I'm just going to come back to where I started and finish that. And so now it's got little edges all the way around. Isn't that cute? All right. The last thing I'm going to do, and you do not need to do this, but I just like the look of it, I am going to, one more time, applique around the outside edges of my heart. And the only reason I'm doing that is in case you want to flip this over, it will have the heart sewn in it with the batting. So let me do that real quick. And I could change to a prettier thread too. I think I'm going to do that. I've got my open toe foot, and let me get some cutesy thread on here because this is actually going to be a real top stitching and showing on both sides. I'll be right back. All right, I've put on a heavier weight thread, a piece with 100 weight. So I have a heavier weight thread on here, and I'm just going to zigzag around it one more time. If you ever end up to where you're off, just lift your needle a little bit and go from there, because you can, with appliquing, you can fix boo-boos really easily. And I am coming to where I started, so I'm just going to finish this up, and I will have a mug rug in 45 minutes. I'm going to take this out and take a quick look at it. Oh, this is adorbs. Absolutely gorgeous, and a perfect little mug rug, just the right size. I hope you Hi everyone, I'm Linda Smith from Flash Fiction Mystery Quilt. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make some super unique quilt blocks that I think you're going to fall in love with. Do you have scraps left over from making quilts and other projects? Guess what? So do I. I have a ton of scraps, just all different colors, shapes, and sizes. We're going to put these together and make what I call wonky fabric. And out of our wonky fabric, we're going to make beautiful, unique quilt blocks. Let me show you how we do that. So what I've done is I've gone through my scrap bin from previous quilts I've made, and I found colors that I really like, and I wanted to make this wonky piece of fabric out of. I haven't even ironed them, hadn't cut off the ends, the extra pieces, but I do have a starting block. This particular block is a 2-inch by, looks like, 1 3/4, and it's going to be my starting piece. From there, I got my machine set to 1/4 of an inch seam, and I'm just going to lay my piece of fabric on there. And I'm going to just sew 1/4 of an inch seam down here, right sides together, of course. Okay, when you've done that, you're going to take your piece, open it up, and you're going to finger press your first seam down, and then we're going to add another piece. And I'm just going to go through my stack and see what I think looks pretty. So I'm going to lay it down. If you can see this piece, there we go. I'm going to lay it down just like this. And it doesn't have to match up. I personally am going to match this one up, but you don't have to. And I've just got it laying on here straight. And I'm just going to sew 1/4 of an inch seam here. The idea is that we're going to work our way around this block, adding small pieces of fabric around our starting block, building upon it and building upon it, and that's why it's called a wonky block. Now, right now my seams are fairly straight. I'm going to finger press this. Well, no, it's starting to turn. That's good, because you don't care if your seams are straight. In fact, it's cuter sometimes if they are not. So we're going to go up here to this one, this piece, and I'm going to add another piece of fabric on right here, and again, right sides to right sides. I'm just going to lay it on there. And sew it on. And I can sew crooked, because if you sew crooked, it doesn't matter on this block. You can sew any way you want to. So if I took off at an angle a little bit, which I just did, all it's going to do is make this more interesting. So there was my starting block, and I added this piece, and then I added this piece, and now I'm adding this piece. So as you go, in just a few minutes, we'll show you how you can just trim these up, these extra pieces of fabric that are behind there. But for right now, we're going to keep adding pieces, because I'm going to go with this piece. Yes. And I'm just going to lay it on there. And as long as you're covering your starting square, you are good to go. Now we will trim these pieces up that are right here after we've got some more sewn on. So what we have right now looks like this.
Such a fun way to use up scraps.
And we're going to add another piece right here. And I'm going to go with this tiny piece of the lime green. And here's where I'm going to start pulling things, because I've come off my center pretty straight and I want things to start getting wonky. So I'm going to lay this piece at an angle on this. So here's where we get the wonkiness out of. Each time I go, I'm finger pressing the piece that I just added over. Now, as you can see, this shows from behind, so that's going to need to be cut off. So we need to trim that. And we also have this little piece that we can trim off now also. So we're just going to cut it down to 1/4 of an inch. And same with this, we're just going to trim this down to 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to trim off this piece of green. I don't have to be specific, I just trimmed it anywhere. But I'm just going to continue my way around and find pieces of fabric that I want to add on. And